CIU listeners, CIU podcast, YouTuber. Welcome to our podcast this afternoon. Again, it's Dr. Williams, the CIU Nation. Good afternoon and good morning. I wanted to talk briefly about the ICJ, that's International Court of Justice, and then the ICC. It's been in the news, in the International Criminal Court. They're not the same. It's just a difference. Just want to share a little light on that. We heard about some arrest warrant and other things that are passing around. So just to explain a little bit of the process, you see, a lot of these things, when you talk about the ICJ, International Court of Justice, and the ICC, International Criminal Court, the nations come together and they have different regulations, requirements, and other things that govern them. You know, these things happen after World War II. After each war, a major war like World War I, World War II, there's some regulations, and these regulations keep changing. And protecting human rights to prevent war, to prevent other nations attacking other nations, to talk about how people should be treated on the battlefield when you're captured, or when they're out there, you have people living together, the civilian, not part of the war, how you treat them. So different rules and regulations talk about human rights and things. So when you do of course, in human rights, in humanitarian law or international human rights, in human rights and humanitarian law, other things, you study these different rules of warfare. You discuss them, how people should be treated. And one thing we encourage during our classes and things, we teach people how to do research. We really don't want people to base article on their writing, their research on interviewing people that didn't get a whole picture. They weren't there and they told you some stories. Maybe they're writing an article, a journalist wrote, because some of those things are not according to the actual facts. So we want students to do the research. We're going to talk about something, actually interview people that were actually on the ground or who were actually there, not heard of second-hand or third-hand knowledge. And again, so sometimes very dangerous to be in a war zone. So you can't it's difficult to have, real truth as it comes to that. But it's a process that goes on. We have international humanitarian law, international human rights, international law, and human rights law. Well, and these laws, international law, conflict of law and international law, we have all of these put together. Then we also have evidence gathering. We have procedures and other things that are in place. We at the ICJ, International Court of Justice, we have nations that can take another nation to the court. You see, there's dispute, they have some rights, something is happening, and they say, no, this country doesn't have the right to do this. It doesn't have to be on the war. There are so many other things that come about that the court can hear so many different cases, conflict issues that the courts can hear. And that, there are different means, so evidence it's always presented. On the other hand, the International Criminal Court actually investigate individuals. Went over the Nuremberg trial that happened around 1948 or so. The Germans, committed a serious grievous atrocity against the Jews. And so these things had to happen. So there's a foundation to see that there's some protection that come about. Individuals don't just go ahead because they have power, they're in authority, and it can blow up a whole community. You blow up a school building, a hospital, residential area. There are certain places that are protected under international human rights law that are designated for civilian people at the hospital, for example, or the university, hospital, schools, and other places, and the civilian putting their hands up, white flag, and really clearly identifying themselves as civilian, not part of the war. But during the war, sometimes a lot of people get killed in a discriminate way, in different situations happen. So the International Criminal Court sometimes get involved. What is jurisdiction? Some places there's no jurisdiction. Jurisdiction means basically either you're part of their treaties, you sign the agreement, you say you're going to follow the ruling of the court. US, for example, is not. I'm not sure about the UK, whether it's part of the ICC. So some of these countries are not part of it. But when in the case with Palestine and Israel, it's a little different because Palestine is part of that, and even though it's not a country, but they confirm it, and the judiciary confirm it that they're part of they have legitimate member. And because Israel control part of Palestine, they can. So then they will say Israel is part of, even though Israel did not sign, they can still make Israel be part of that. But again, that's different from what's ever happening. I'm not going into the details of that. I'm just discussing the process of the code system and how it works, how the ICJ is actually different from the International Criminal Court. The idea these things are set in place so that people be protected. We have many civil wars that have been happening around the world. We have Charles Tito, that is from Liberia, the rebel leader, became president, and he was charged, I think, with crime committed in Sierra Leone, and now he's in the Hague serving time. He's convicted. Other leaders have been convicted in front of the court, and we have Bashir of Sudan and other leaders, Putin, for example, that also have got an arrest warrant on them. So basically, the prosecutor for the International Criminal Court, the way it works when something is happening, and they have different ways of finding out is, are they in compliance with international laws in terms of protecting civilians, making sure that they have the basic human rights, their rights are not being abused. For example, food, they have food, the basic needs you need to live. Food, water, basic things to function. Are they being deprived of those things? And so they look at those things, those are violations of human rights if they're not available for people that are in there. And so those are grounds to say you committed war crime. It may not, there are different names used during the war. In Liberia, I think over 250,000 people died. Sudan, now there are, I don't know how many people died in Sudan. And then we know people also in the Congo. There are so many wars happening around the world that Yemen and other places that things are happening. So these things are troublesome. So they ask the prosecutor, usually he will bring in some expert lawyers, and together they got evidence, they follow the procedure, they got evidence and other proof, other things. And after that, they make the recommendation to the prosecutor, and then they decide whether they should issue arrest warrant. They may issue an arrest warrant, but that doesn't mean it's going to be approved. They have to go before a 3-judge panel, very experienced jurists that will listen to that arrest warrant and approve of it. If it is okay, if it is in line, they see the evidence, that this evidence is clear cut, that this particular country or this leader who is spearheading that, it may not be the entire country. So if you want to take the entire country, to say the country is doing certain things that are wrong against a violation of human rights, a crime against humanity, then another country that's part of the treaty can take them to court, take them to the ICJ. So the ICJ will, the judges, there are 16-member judges, I think 15 or so, they will go through all that, selected from different countries. They will hear the argument, the discussion, and say this country is doing this, and the country will be giving them the opportunity to defend themselves, and then they will issue ruling and whatever it is, either it's true or not, or they may issue some guidelines and suggestions. So that's the ICJ. But the ICC, International Criminal Court, actually go after criminals, leaders that are committing crime against humanity. So if they feel after that investigation from the committee recommendation, then they go to the judges, and the judge approve, then they have a warrant to arrest this person, this leader. So if the leader was to travel in the countries that are part of that treaty, part of that agreement, then he will be arrested and they'll have to face trial. So sometimes they really don't travel in different countries, they get stuck in their country. But even if nothing is done, we've seen this, was it Rumsfeld and a few others that U.S. personnel, Judge Bush, I think, the ICC also, I think, accepted the arrest warrant. But U.S. is not part of the treaty. But for other countries, it matters. It matters. It's a reputation. People want to see that we got high moral standard, we got second principle. So when your leader is actually, said that, well, he's committing crime, even if nothing is done against him, he's not arrested, it tarnishes some reputation. It's a reproach upon him. And others that had high respect, high regard for that leader may not have that same respect again. Like, for example, Bashir of Sudan, others maybe respect him, but others don't see him that way, because even though he had not been arrested, they still consider him to be criminal. Same thing goes with Russia. Sometimes And like I said, I didn't have no intention of going into details, just explaining that the ICC and the IJC, they're two different things, two different bodies, and serve different purposes. So again, thank you so much for listening. And again, keep up with the news and apply the knowledge you learn in our international law, our conflict of law class. And you compare them, with international, if you did the degree in international human rights law or humanitarian law, you can also apply that. And then you can also look at the peace process, what's happening, how the parties have been negotiating the peace settlement, whatever conflict it is, because you also have a degree specialization in international peace and dispute resolution, international peace and dispute resolution. Another one I really like today is international relation and diplomacy. So these are courses we teach at Kampala International University, the Berkeley College of Law. So if the students, you want to learn more of these, participate in animated discussion to see how these war players, what they're doing in between, in the background, facilitating things. You should join our class, join our school, and get to learn about what's happening in the international market, in the international world, and how these players can either bring one another to trade, to court, or how they can defend one another, how you can defend a civilian, how you can, their process, you can use, even take civilians that live in one country can go after their own government legally. And when that fails, then they can go to another international regional court thing. So this is a process. Again, we invite you all to come to see and but pay attention to the exciting things that are happening. It's not exciting to see people die in war, and we don't like that. We don't participate. We don't encourage that. But the view is when the legal system, what is happening, and that's what we encourage you all to learn. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to CIU podcast. Again, this Kampala Nation is Dr. Williams, and you have a blessed day. Thank you for listening.